even more grammar. So this is the fourth grammar video I'm making, and we're going to see some of the latest discussion on the Fallible Ideas list about grammar topics. So, Anon wrote a reply to my question about verbals, whether verbals govern their clause. And I say, a non-finite verb can serve as the main verb in a clause as far as I know. I thought not serving as the main verb in a clause was one of the defining attributes of non-finite verbs. And then Anon replies, if a verbal, meaning non-finite verb equals non-finite verb, has a subject, object, or complement, it is the leader of that group of words exactly the same as a finite verb with a subject, object, or complement. Anon says you essentially took a non-finite verb with a subject and wanted to draw a tree diagram with the subject above its verb rather than vice versa. See, so Anon says, if a verbal has a subject, object, or complement, it is the leader of that group of words, exactly the same as a finite verb with a subject, object, or complement. And I think there's like a fundamental disagreement here in terms of the basic analysis of verbals, and it took me a minute to figure that out, or more than a minute. But I think we're just looking at verbals in a completely different way. Right, so I brought it up here. So, Anon's approach, this is from Eliot's Grammar Educational Materials. Verbs lead their clause with subject and object or modifiers attached to what they modify. And so, there's an example here. John threw balls. And then threw governs, threw, which is the verb, governs John, which is the subject, and balls, which is the main event. And I guess how I take Anon is following this approach with verbals as well. And I think I disagree very strongly with that, because I analyze verbals not as verbs, but as a verb-derived word form whose grammatical analysis depends on what function they are actually performing in a given clause or phrase. That's what I think the core of the disagreement is. And so there could be some overlap in terms of how certain parts of the analysis come out, but I think that's a big part of the disagreement is this fundamental thing. And so I'm gonna take Anon's advice. Well, actually, this first part I'm not sure exactly which thing I did that he's referring to, because it doesn't seem to be quoted directly. The previous material, like this is Kate's stuff. But anyway, there's a second part where he says, by the way, it would help if you posted diagrams of what you're thinking. So I will do that, but just quickly in words. So I think Anon would say with this sentence, my desire was to become a doctor. Anon would say, I think we would both agree, that the overall structure of the sentence is that there is a subject, desire, there's a linking verb, was, and then a complement, this whole thing. And I think Anon would say that to become governs this whole thing because it's a verb. And what I would say is that to become governs this whole thing, it's like it's the leader of this group of words, because it's the main noun. Right. I agree with this. I didn't even read this part until I finished my own analysis, because it would be helpful if I'm like analyzing and then this random webpage comes out totally different, but it would be an indication maybe I was going awry. So In these sentences, the infinitives to become and to serve are functioning as complement, subjective, of the verb was and is, respectively, and hence they are functioning as noun. Right. So this is a noun. This is an object of this verbal, which is telling us more about the noun. I'll diagram it. But essentially, it's like you can have something that comes after a noun that modifies the noun that comes before it. That's not the standard orientation of English syntax. You normally say a red ball, a cheesy pizza. But you can have that situation. And there's various examples of that. And they have different names. There's a somewhat generic name for when an adjective, like if you have an adjective coming after a noun or pronoun, it's called a postpositive adjective. But I think that's even, because that's a bit narrower. I don't know, I might need to make a new concept like post-noun noun modifier. that's inelegant. But I think it's the concept that I want to get to, because like it comes up. Like there's object complements and appositives and postpositive adjectives. Like these are all different things, I think. And so even subject complements, right? She was pretty. Pretty's coming after the pronoun she. So we give these things different names depending on the depending on the structure of the sentence. But there's some useful category here, I think, for thinking about this stuff. So I just thought of a criticism of incoherent ideas here. How can a verbal have an object if it's not functioning as a verb in some sense? Like in a simple sentence, you might have like John hit the ball. You couldn't just have John ball, right? So the verb is necessary. And you could say, well, it's just a special rule that infinitives get to have objects, but then that's making things, that's not a principled sort of analysis. It's just saying, okay, there's a special case where, for whatever reason, we say that that's okay. So you want to avoid that sort of like unprincipled type of analysis and try and think in terms of principles more. But there's another issue, which is you need a noun to serve as an object. Like if you want to say Jane loved, and the thing you want to describe is the activity of singing, you would say to sing. Jane loved to sing. You don't say Jane loves sing, right? I mean, you'd sound funny. Somebody might get the point, but it's not grammatical. So, now the way you could resolve that maybe is by saying, well, there's two levels of attributes in a way. There's a level of attribute in terms of the structure of the whole sentence, or there's the analysis in terms of the structure of the sentence, and then there's the analysis in terms of a group of words. So you could say, in terms of the structure of the sentence, an infinitive is a noun. But in terms of its group of words that it's governing, an infinitive is a verb. And that's why it can serve the noun role. It can meet the noun requirement for being an object. For example, Jane loved to sing songs, right? Subject, Jane. Verb, loved. Object is this whole thing. But you could say, so this is functioning as a noun relative to the rest of the sentence. But within just its, breaking it up here, within just its group of words, to sing is a verb, and then that's why it can have an object. So you can't look at it as a verb all the way down, all the way through. Like if you're looking at both the whole sentence and the group of words, you can't look at this to sing as just a verb, because then it can't be an object. What I want to do is look at it as a noun throughout, I guess. That's the approach that I'm arguing for. Like, it's just a noun. It's derived from a verb, but that's just like an etymological detail. It's just a noun. And then the problem with that is, well, then how come it has an object? If it's just a noun, you can't say John Ball. You gotta have a verb in there, so how come you can say to sing songs? And maybe the resolution, maybe the idea of infinitives having objects is mistaken. So what do I want to say then? How do I analyze this? That songs... Alright, so I wrote a bunch of stuff. Alright, so I've at least figured out what the disagreement is. Right, like step one. So I give an example sentence, Jane loved to sing songs, and I give some ways to analyze the sentence. The first two I think are definitely wrong. The third is what I think Anand's reading would be, and the fourth is my reading. So, and I try to be like fair, you know? Like, so say we say that for this sentence, Jane loved to sing songs, to sing is a verb. Okay? Well, that does solve a problem, which is that verbs can have objects. But verbs can't serve as an object here. Jane loves something. You know, in easier cases like Jane loved, subject Jane, verb love, what did she love? It was the object of her love. So that has a fatal flaw, I think. By the way, I think it's good, like, it's good to even go through stuff even that you think is clearly wrong, to make sure that you understand why, because you might just have a superficial understanding of why it's wrong. Oh, that's just wrong, because, like, teacher said, you don't want that. You also might have an intuitive sense of why it's wrong that has some truth to it, but you can't explain it very well, and you should be able to explain it well because you want to be able to, like, knock these out, you know, just like, boom. If you want to have a better understanding of some topic, you want to be able to easily criticize stuff almost without even thinking about it, certainly without having to ponder and stroke your beard and, you know, like, you just want to be able to go, oh, boom, that falls in category X, that's wrong next. So I actually had to ponder this one a bit. So I was like, wait. But, you know, one thing is you don't want the grammatical analysis to, like, change them. And so I think that's the flaw here. Because infinitives can serve as adjectives, although I think that they generally come after. Like, I had an example here. Right, I have some jeans to wash, tells us which jeans. Yeah, sure, right? The singer to watch is Joyce, tells us which singer, yada yada, right? So you could make a position-based criticism, but I think it's more of a meaning thing. Like, so... But, okay, so let's start with problem solved. So this basically, I'm just saying it like kind of lets us put things in order. Like, Jane loves songs. That makes sense. And you're just saying, okay, it's to sing's an adjective. So, I mean, this is faint praise. It's like, well, I guess it lets us analyze it, kind of. Okay, that's maybe not a good problem solved. But if it came after, like if it said Jane loves songs to sing, that would be, because I think the meaning then would be like, she loved the type of songs you could sing. She loved songs for the purpose, for singing, like singing songs, right? So, but here, it's like, it's just the grammatical analysis doesn't match up with, and then I give an example, like I say, the songs, Jane didn't love songs, she loved the activity of singing songs. The songs are loved to the extent that they are part of an activity. Actually, that's not even right. The activity of singing is the loved thing. This is different than John loved the red balls, where John actually loves the balls that are red. The balls are loved per se, and not due to being part of, they are receiving the love. So I think these two are mistaken. To sing functions as a verb within its word group to sing songs, and thus can have an object, songs. On the other hand, to sing functions as a noun in relation to loved. This is a third interpretation. And can thus have, oh, I miswrote this, haha. To sing functions as a verb within its group to sing songs as can have an object. No, I wrote it right. As a have and function. I should make it a bit clearer for the sentence as a whole. There we go. I'm going to break these up. That got a little confusing. Whenever you start reading stuff and you start like halting, break things. So under this interpretation, to sing is sort of wearing two hats, and then it can do both jobs because it needs to function as an object, and it needs to function as a thing that can have an object. So it needs to be a noun at one level and a verb be type thing at another level. And like, I sort of give the, well, yeah, no, I think this is, because wearing two hats lets it do both jobs, but then you're looking at it a bit inconsistently. So then there's J theory. To sing function as a noun, period, full stop. End. So then there's a problem there. Nouns can't take objects. John hit the ball, not John ball, right? Like hit is a thing that's taking the object. John is performing the action of the hitting on the ball, but you need the verb there. This isn't anything. Songs isn't an object. The idea of infinitives having objects is a misconception resulting from a verb. Songs is actually a post-noun modifier. I think exploding brain is definitely a good emoji for me right now for this one, of which there are many examples. Post-positive adjectives, a positive subject complements. And I wanted to, because I get what Anon and I think both Elliot have said, like you don't want a bunch of special cases, and you can just analyze things in terms of those special cases, but then there's no like guiding unifying principle. And in general in English, noun modifiers or adjectives come before red ball, cheesy pizza, but they do come after in lots of. And so I was trying to think, well, so the default is before, but sometimes they come after, but then they have all these special names. But what's the unifying thing? It's that it's a special name for something that comes after that's modifying a noun. Post-noun modifier. Right? I think it's okay. It's okay at least as a tentative proposed conceptual grouping. Maybe there's something wrong with it. So then I say, this particular P&M, I'm already using my new abbreviation, will be called an object complement. 4 is my current interpretation. Following the line of reasoning represented in 4 has led me to reject the idea of infinitives having objects as misconceived. And then I put a disclaimer. Because I'm probably missing something here. I don't think I've actually... I'm doubtful that I've refuted a major principle of grammar, but I'm not seeing why I'm wrong, so, I've definitely put some mental energy into doing this analysis, so I'm not just tossing out my, half-baked things. So, if you're going to do the work. So I'm going to... And the analysis is completely different, because Anon seems to be following... Alright, so I made a diagram. I actually think whether you use songs as an object of a verb, I omitted the two, by the way, but whether you view it as an object or whether you view it as modifying sing, I think it comes out the same. So I just said that. So I'll wrap up